Hi everyone, this is Kathy from Iridology Fusion. Today we're going to talk about the teaching pod number 8, and the common mistake that a lot of iridologists make is not starting with digestion first. It should be the first place we start, in the center of the eye, just outside of the pupil, in the nutritive zone, and then explore out into the rest of the eye to see what's going on. So let's get into it. So where do we begin? We begin at the beginning, of course. Let's always start with the beginning. There's no reason to turn to the last page of the book and read the last paragraph first. We need to start at the beginning in chapter 1. So as an iridologist, it's very, very important that we explain what we see when we see things in the eye that the client would resonate with, or other markings that we need to ask questions about. Now remember, back in pod number 3, we talked about properly asking questions, asking pertinent questions, asking questions that applied to the markings or the pigments or any of the things that we notice in the iris. This is what we should be doing. Start at the beginning, start at the center, work your way out, and ask questions about what you see. So here we go. Let's start with the digestive system. Let's look at the nutritive zone and the shape of the collarette. We want to notice the shape, the placement, and the quality of the collarette. This is really easy to do, and this is going to give you a lot of information about where else to explore in the iris. Our client, as we can see, has a very atonic placement of her collarette, meaning when we see this in a person, they may lack the strong function of being able to move the bowel, or it may be somewhat slow because it lacks some tone. Then we look at the quality, and when we see this, we note that this particular eye has a thick and ropey quality to the collarette. Now what this would indicate is that there could be a tendency for some extra nerve energy or even some fermentation in the bowel. And when this client and I began to talk about this particular situation, she could confirm to me that on occasion she does have a lot of extra nerve energy in the bowel. That leads us right into the shape of the collarette. We can see when we look at this collarette that it is jagged. When we see the jagged collarette, that is going to lead us to a constant reaction of stress. So when our client reacts to the stresses around them, that's going to affect the bowel. It may turn the bowel on, or it may turn the bowel off. So if our client just received some information on a phone call that she found to be quite devastating, this could put her in one place or another. She may have issues with constipation for the next few days, or she may have something that she refers to as a nervous stomach that would cause a lot of diarrhea. So the client was able to confirm these findings just with the bowel alone. So when we do look at the shape of the collarette, if you notice between the 12 and 1 o'clock, the 12 and the 11 o'clock position, we see that the bowel, the shape of the collarette, opens into the frontal brain area. Now, the frontal brain area is responsible for our understanding. It is also responsible for speech. It just so happens this particular client has a stuttering problem. She's had it since she was a child. She also told me that her father had a chronic problem with stuttering, and he found it very, very hard to overcome that as he became a grown man. So it started in his childhood and it stayed with him as an adult. If you look slightly to the 11 o'clock area, we're going to notice the area of the mastoid. In speaking with the client, she confirmed to me that her father had deafness in his right ear. As a small child, as a result of an accident, he became deaf. But there is a history on the father's side of the family of deafness. She feels like from time to time she has nerve problems or ringing in the ear a lot of times, and this could relate to the issue of the mastoid. That is another indication of how the collarette shows us where to look into the body of the eye. So let the collarette show you. Let it show you where to go. So when we look at the areas that push or they move into other areas of the eye, this is important for us to notice this if it's related to a body system, a particular organ, or even what zone we're noticing this shape into the collarette. It could mean that we're doing too much of something or maybe not enough of one particular thing. It's very important to address that. When you start at the center and work your way out, you can read the story. You don't ever start with the last chapter and start over at chapter 1. You start with chapter 1 and read the book all the way through. Digestion is always the first place to start. So in our next Iridology Fusion teaching pod, we'll be hitting on topic number 9, and that is not using the sclera to validate our iris findings. So stick with me. We're almost finished with this teaching series. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed bringing it to you. So be on the lookout for teaching pod number 9. Thanks again.